Michael, how are you?
I'm tired from getting a nap after Wrigley Field last night and flying back to Washington and dueling with Kornheiser. But I'm as good tired as I could possibly be, given that was one of my favorite nights, sporting nights in Chicago of my life, was last night.
So, in Wilbon, put that in perspective, because you covered all the Bulls dynasty years, and maybe you can't be a fan, and you're more of a reporter in those instances. You were there for 16 and seeing all the World Series run, winning for the first time in 108 years. You, as Chief was just telling us, he's seen you at Blackhawks postseason games.
I was at all three Blackhawks runs. Yeah.
So for this one to be amongst your greatest memories, explain to us why.
Well, we won, which, for the Cubs is not automatic. You think about some of those moments going back to when, we won the 2 games in 1984, going that far back, which is sort of the beginning of the modern Cubs, Ron Sandberg and Sutcliffe. But they lost ultimately in San Diego. So they did win the 2 games in Chicago. But after that, man, you go through the years, and obviously 2003, some of the biggest nights at Wrigley were disappointing, losing 2 out of the 3 World Series games. Mm-hmm. And last night, there was something about it. I kept getting text messages from people who've been going to Wrigley Field as long, if not longer than I have. And for me, it's been 56 years. My first trip there was when I was 10 years old. And they were talking about the electricity that was coming through on television. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that in the ballpark, and again, like you said, I've been to a million things. But I did think, wow, this place is just popping tonight. And after the early home run gets people jacked. I thought it was important. There was a sort of a nice fall evening, that it wasn't 82 degrees outside. It felt like something that was, unique to Chicago, or particular to Chicago. And and getting that lead and holding it had enough tension, because, not scoring anything other than the first inning. And the longer that went, there was some tension. But when both managers, this is what is different. When 2 managers talk about the atmosphere in the venue affecting the outcome, you don't hear that. You don't hear that from coaches or managers. And both of them talked about it. And so I got a chance to sort of appreciate it even more once I had left, and once I could sort of consume the event in a second way. But it was just to win that game that way, facing elimination, to have those home runs, to have it on that, clear, beautiful fall night at Wrigley. No disappointment anywhere in sight. Now, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But last night stands out. And you're right. Look, I was at every one of those Jordan Conference Finals and Finals games, and it felt like some of those, I remember the nights, when the Bulls finally got through the Pistons. And I remember the nights that, goodness, the Rams-Bears game in 85, and now you're talking about a small fraction of your audience that's going to remember that stuff like I do. But the Bears beating the Rams on the way to the Super Bowl, that had that feeling. So it's a certain number, a finite number of nights in Chicago that just felt like they had championship written all over them.
Did you notice a change, because you've been to everything with Wrigley Field? It does feel like there's more of an intensity with Cubs fans in the last 10 or 15 years, almost since they lost in 08. Is that something palpable when you walk in? Does it feel different than it felt in 90 or 80 or in the 80s?
Yeah. Definitely felt, not 84. I mean, 84 was as, passionate as you can get, because we had, they hadn't been there for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And that was, the way it ended was just awful. But yeah, I'd say, you know what? I mean, I don't want to take away from, people were passionate as they could be in 03. Mm-hmm. They were in 07 and 09. And those games were electric. I think what was different for me, and I actually thought about this because it stood out so much, is that it wasn't desperate. There wasn't a desperate edge to it. People like this team. Mm-hmm. They're not fed up with anybody. There's not resentment. There's not, oh, here we go again. There doesn't seem to be that. They like what this is. Now, that stuff doesn't last forever. You get that sort of falling in love with somebody once. You get it for a little while. Doesn't mean it's going to be back next year. We got it now. And that's why I would love to see them win for a lot of reasons. But to win tomorrow and then go into a series with the Dodgers, who will be heavily favored. I remember in 2016, the Cubs were favored. That was different. It was like, oh, my God, if we don't win, we're going to die. That's not what last night was. That feeling was not in the building. It was joyous. And I think that was not the case in 2003. Even when you had Sammy skipping around and hopping out of the box, I don't know that it was always joyous. I don't remember that being the predominant mood when I was at those games. In particularly 2003, and then he was gone by 2007. So 2007, 2008 was a different cast of characters. But it was more of we're just waiting on something to happen.
Yes.
That's not what was last night.
Well, you texted me about the 2003 crowds. Remember, all the people would go out to Waveland Avenue.
Outside.
And it was
a
party.
God.
It was a party inside and a party outside. And what I thought was different about 2003 is a lot of people at the time felt like it was a Cub-proofed team where they could go out there and they were going to win. They just beat the Braves. There was no beating this Cubs team with Dusty as their new, confident manager with Mark Pryor doing what he's doing. Kerry Wood is the number 2 pitcher. Yeah. And they were deep, Zambrano and Clement and timely hitting.
I looked at that staff last night. I looked it up because I wanted to see, what it was. And that was Pryor's best year.
18-6, yeah.
The 18-6 year. Silvy, I'm with you on this. And the same thing with the Pinella teams. But by the way, the Cubs had the best teams in the major leagues in 2003, 2007, and 2009.
08. Yeah. Now, here's Michael.
The Cubs had the best teams, but there was we don't operate well as the favorite.
Yeah.
85. Or the Bears did, but not the Cubs. Not the Cubs don't operate well.
Well, and I think what 03 reminded a lot of people of in Game 6 was nothing is over until it's over. And then there was more of an anxiety that returned after 03 in big moments. Yes. And I feel like now that they've won in 16, we don't have the same anxiety, and we could go and just have fun at these games now.
I get annoyed when people are counting how many outs are left.
Me too.
Yeah, where it's like, let's just one at a time.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear about 5 outs.
Because it reminds me of the broadcast talking about the Cubs of 5 outs in the World Series.
Yes.
I get annoyed because of that. But, last night didn't have that. And, again, we don't know how long that sense of joy remains. It doesn't hang around forever. Ask the Philadelphia Eagles. Ask the Philly fans how long it hangs around. So, it was enjoyable. I'd like to enjoy it again. I'd like to enjoy it, for games, 3 and 4. And we would be – is the NLCS 2-3-2 format?
It is 2-3-2. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we would get 3 games. We'd get 3 games in Chicago, 3 games at Wrigley with the Dodgers. And, the Cubs have had – after those games in Japan, the Cubs did okay against the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And so I'm not, all that scared of that matchup. I'm like, okay, the Dodgers are the better team, the better lineup. There's no question about that. But so is Milwaukee. And so if we can get through Milwaukee tomorrow, and that's going to be hard. I mean, look how many runs the Brewers have scored there. They didn't score any runs in Chicago, 3 runs in 18 innings. But they scored in Milwaukee. And so I'm just, can we get through the early part of that game with not having what we did reversed, where the Brewers run off and hide in these games. So, tomorrow, and it's going to be interesting to see what, with last-second ticket sales, is there going to be a big Cub fan presence in Milwaukee tomorrow? I'm wondering about that.
We don't know because there wasn't for games 1 or 2, or not as much as you would think. They've done a good job keeping Illinois residents
out. No
Milwaukee
presence last night.
No, right. I was surprised by that.
That's rare for both places, not to have that sort of cross-pollination. But it was, it was just a stunning evening last night. Look, I said going into this, I felt good about this matchup. One of the things you don't want is to have to, if you're the favorite, you don't want to have to play a division opponent. This goes back to the Bears when they didn't get rid of Green Bay in 2010 and they had to play the Packers in the NFC Championship game when the Packers should have been eliminated by the Bears in the regular season. And we wouldn't have had to play the Packers.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that with both. I tell you, I thought about a couple of situations. Thought about it with the Cubs and Brewers naturally, and thought about it with Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati just isn't good enough to sort of. They're not there yet. They're not at that point of their club evolution. But you don't want to have to face a division opponent that you've played a million times already and multiple seasons, and guys are used to one another, and there's no intimidation, there's no fear. So I felt good about the Cubs' chances in this series from the standpoint of starting pitching, and I still hate the counsel threw Matt Boyd out there in the first game on short rest. But other than that, I think the Cubs have done everything they could to this point.
Michael, thank you for picking up the phone. We know it's the weekend. We know you had a long night and day, and we wanted to just pick your brain about what you thought about last night. Thank you for calling.
Hey, listen, happy to. Last night, special night, and let's hope we get a chance for at least 3 more next week with the Dodgers.
That's right. That's right.